Go for it.
Well, I want to thank each of you for being here. I think that Twin Peaks really lives on in the minds and the hearts of the fans. And I also want to thank you because going to Seattle to the fan festivals is great, but I live in LA, so I don't have to go to Seattle to ask you this question. But I want to ask Mr. Wise about the character of Leland, because my favorite scene in the series is Leland's death, and I think it's really a profound scene, and you definitely get a sense as a viewer that Leland is not responsible for Laura's death. At least that was the way I interpreted it at the time. And then the movie
that's
came
the way I
out.
interpreted it too, yeah.
And then the movie, there was some speculation, such as in Wrapped in Plastic, which is a Twin Peaks magazine, and saying, well, maybe Leland does have some complicity or some responsibility for Laura's murder. I'm wondering how you acted it, or just going from one extreme to the other, being innocent and then maybe being a little guilty, or
well, see, by the time I did the movie, the secret was out, and I knew who the character was and what he'd been doing all that time. During the series, as I said, I was going through some remarkable things, scene-wise, throwing myself on caskets and dancing by myself and the reindeer dance and all this sort of stuff that I like to call the Leland Shuffle, but anyway. And I went through all this stuff, and I thought, I'm just a good guy. I'm a lawyer with a decent baritone voice, and I have one client, Ben Horn. He's all I need. And my daughter got murdered, and driving me crazy. And I can't deal with the grief, and I find various ways of trying to deal with it, and it's not working. And I thought, well, this is it. But by the time the movie came, I knew that Leland was the one, and he, you could think that he was Bob, or is he schizo, and all of that stuff. And so yeah, it became a much different acting problem, and there were certain moments in some of the scenes where I actually had to flip the switch from being good Leland, saying, "Oh, hello, honey, princess, darling," to and David, remarkably, he picked out a few of those moments, and then later in the editing, he would always emphasize those moments with the music, and you knew just from the music that you heard in one particular moment where Leland's head was at, I think, and at least that's the way I saw it. And but it was a totally different acting problem, different character, really, actually, because I was in the dark most of the series, and then I was brought into the light.
I think someone in the back by the exit doors is leaning against the light switch. Can you guys, Andrew, can you bring the aisle lights back up? Okay, next question.
I'll just be a voice from the darkness. Hi, you guys. Thanks, all of you, for coming. I was just curious, so many of you worked on this very early on in your careers, so I was curious how other directors you've worked with since have compared to David Lynch, what you learned from working with him. Did you get spoiled? Also, unfortunately, the person with the most insight into this has already left, but David Lynch made all these very disturbing films about the darkest aspects of the human condition, and at the same time he was raising a family. And on this show, he was able to integrate his personal life with his creative process in the midst of this very disturbing content with Laura Palmer's diary and so forth. So his daughter probably would have been the best person, but I was curious if any of you had any insight into how all that came together, how all that unfolded, and how he pulled it off. Thanks.
There's rumors about David's personal life and related to his family and how he brought that in to work everything out. But I have the vaguest idea how to answer your question. The reaction
except that, no, do you have any
Well, how does
insight?
he compare, I think what you're asking too is that how does he compare to other directors you guys have worked with? They
Well,
write-
yeah,
that is
we had some good directors. They weren't
Yeah.
bad, but again, as I said, anytime they tried to mess with our vibe, we didn't let them do that. You know, and
Yeah.
David's the one that established the vibe, and that's how we carried on. But we had some good ones. We had Caleb Deschanel,
That's right.
Tim Hunter,
Willie Grossbart,
Will Grossbart,
Leslie
yeah,
Gladder.
was the latter.
Diane Keaton, bunch of them. They were all good. Graham Clifford,
That's right.
yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, and you guys were very protective about what the series was, which is always remarkable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the, I mean, he's unique, you know, David's one of the giants, you know what I mean? So have you guys worked with, other directors since the series that compare? You know?
Not me.
David Fincher.
David Fincher's great.
No, I mean, I don't think you can make comparisons really, actually, you know. That's not a good question.
I don't think you should.
I think George Clooney, I work with George Clooney, he's the closest to David Lynch that I can. No.
When I was working at Universal, and David came over for lunch to visit me, and I had a cart, right, so we could drive all over the lot, right? So we get in the cart, and we're driving around Universal, goofing around, and he sees the building that was Alfred Hitchcock's office. It's called the Hitchcock Building on Universal lot, right? It's the Alfred Hitchcock, and his office is there, right? So David, we stop the car, and David goes up to the door of the office, right? And he knocks on it, and this assistant comes out and looks and sees it's David, right? Standing there. And David says, "I have an appointment to meet Mr. Alfred Hitchcock in a half hour." This person's like, what the fuck? So we went in and waited in the lobby. He's been dead for 25 years.
That's great.
By the time the movie had come out, the Twin Peaks sort of zeitgeist moment had come and gone to the point where the reviews for the film were pretty scathing at the time. In the 2 decades or so that have passed since then, I think the perception of the film has become more favorable and kind. As cast and writer of the film, though, how personally did you take some of the reviews? I've read some theories over the years that it was sort of revenge of the film critics, where here was this great praised TV show that once it made the transition to the screen, that they sort of took the chance to knock it back down to size. That at the time, TV wasn't really seen as important as film was. But I don't know if you want to go into that at all, but still, just how personally did you take some of the poor reviews that the film initially received on its
Well, I know we got booed at the Cannes Film Festival, I know that. Luckily, I wasn't there, so it didn't bother me that much, but I think David was there. I don't know if you were there.
I was there.
He was there. Yeah, that's what they said.
I saw it there. I was actually there on something else, and I got to go, and I was worried.
Didn't it get booed at the end?
I don't remember it.
They wrote about
That's
that.
what everybody said, but I don't remember that at all.
I don't think it
actually. I don't.
Not when I saw it, unless it was they screened several times.
Yeah, they did,
Maybe
yeah,
one of them
I think
got
the first screen, we had the first one?
The
Yeah.
one I went on, and they loved it. I mean, they all were freaking out on it. They had, yeah, it was wild. But maybe it was the first screening, it's possible.
Well, yeah, anyway. I didn't really read any of those reviews for the movie, really.
Either way, I think over the years, the perception of the film has become more favorable. I don't know if any of you feel vindicated, just in the sense where I think Ray and Shelley's performances did not get the credit that they deserved at the time, and Bob, again, your script.
Well, especially her. I mean, she
Both you guys.
went through amazing stuff in that movie. It just went beyond the pale. It was incredible work.
That's what you did.
Well,
But I do.
helped her.
I will say, to answer your question, I was really young, and fortunately, I wasn't at the festivals. I was doing a play, and in the end, I think that was really good for me, so that I was focusing on something else that required my attention every single day. But I think what's hard, when you work on this kind of material, as I've done so many times, not just on Twin Peaks, but then later, this kind of controversial material and that is intense, it's not surprising that it gets intense reactions. What's challenging about it is that sometimes those critiques become very personal, that they're not about the work, they're about the person. And when you're young and you don't have there's no handbook of like, this is what happens when the film comes out and you have all this hate coming towards you or whatever, there's no, you don't really have any tools to know what to do with that. And again, fortunately, I was doing something else and focused on that. But I think also, you, especially in roles like this, you really put your heart and your soul into it. And so, that can be painful just in the sense of, again, not having the tools at that age. It would be very different if that happened to me now at this age with this experience and everything. But at that time, at that age, with that little experience, it was a very strange time. Because it was a strange time from the beginning when the pilot aired, and then all of a sudden overnight, your anonymity is gone, your privacy is gone, your whole life changes in one way overnight, and then later, again, you go through this change of all of this negativity, and you just sort of have to stay very present in your own life, in your own moment, and, focus on that.
I would have been interested to see the long version, because I know there was one. Because I know we shot some scenes that I didn't see in the movie, so, and I would have liked to see them.
So, there's the first cut was around 3 hours.
Yeah.
Stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was 5.
Yeah, I thought it was closer to 5. That's
Well,
the
yes,
David said.
5, yeah. But I don't know where those, I don't know where that is. I don't know where that film is. I don't know.
So if I can take a moment on that, because Mary Sweeney, who teaches here, has mentioned many times that the issue with the scenes that are not available has to do with the fact that there's a lot of post-production that still needs to be done, and that requires funding. So all of you out there there's people out there that are doing Kickstarter campaigns to try and resurrect the show, something like that. What we should really be inspiring people to do is find the funding to allow them to finish that work that until now is just not possible for economic reasons. So if those of you watching on the internet or anyone that's tweeting about it, that's probably a pretty good place to focus some energy, I think. Last question.